Hello friends and welcome to another chilling story time. Story 1. The trees loomed around us, their gnarled branches stretching like skeletal fingers clawing at the darkening sky. We had arrived at the cabin just before sunset, the sun dipping low behind the mountains, casting eerie shadows through the towering pines. I leaned against the car, feeling the cool breeze prickling my skin. My sister, Lily, tugged at her backpack, her eyes darting nervously toward the dense woods. "Are you sure this place is safe?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course it is," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "It's just an old cabin. What could possibly go wrong?" Our parents, oblivious to our apprehensions, were busy unloading the car. "Come on, you two. Help us with the bags," Dad called, his voice echoing in the stillness. As we moved to assist, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I glanced back at the trees, their dark shapes blending into the twilight. "Just the wind," I muttered to myself, dismissing the unease that crept up my spine. Inside, the cabin smelled of damp wood and something faintly musty. The living room was cluttered with mismatched furniture and a stone fireplace that looked like it hadn't been used in years. A rusted horseshoe hung crookedly above the mantel, a supposed good luck charm, my parents said. "Let's make this a weekend to remember," Mom exclaimed, her excitement cutting through the tension. And remember it, we would. That first night, we settled in with a game of cards, laughter filling the space. The clatter of chips and the shuffle of cards echoed, a comforting sound against the backdrop of the whispering trees outside. "Ha! I win again," I crowed, throwing my cards down triumphantly. Lily rolled her eyes. "You're just lucky. Or maybe I'm just better," I teased, leaning back in my chair. But deep down, I felt the weight of the night pressing in. As the hour grew late, we moved to the fireplace, igniting a small fire. The crackling flames flickered shadows along the walls, creating an unsettling dance. "It's getting late," Mom said, yawning. "Let's call it a night." Lily and I exchanged glances, the unease creeping back. "Can't we stay up a little longer?" I pleaded. "Just for a bit," Dad relented, his eyes twinkling. "But no scary stories." "Like we'd tell those," Lily said, smirking. But the stories came anyway, woven into our conversations as we reminisced about family trips and embarrassing moments. Then there was a sudden noise outside, a loud thud, followed by a rustle in the underbrush. "What was that?" Lily's voice trembled as she clutched her blanket tighter. "Probably just a deer," Dad said, dismissively. But even he looked uneasy, glancing toward the window. I peered outside, but all I could see were shadows, the trees swaying as if whispering secrets. "It's nothing," I assured her, though my voice wavered. After a few more minutes of laughter that felt forced, we finally retreated to our rooms. My heart raced as I lay in bed, the darkness pressing in. I tried to focus on the quiet, but strange noises began to fill the night. Scrape, scratch. I sat up, straining to hear. "Lily," I whispered, hoping she was awake. "Yeah," she replied, her voice trembling. "Did you hear that?" "Ahoo. What is that?" Before I could respond, the sound came again, a louder thud, like something heavy had fallen in the woods. My pulse quickened. "I'll check it out." "Are you crazy?" she hissed. "What if it's a bear?" "Or just a branch," I countered, trying to sound braver than I felt. I slipped out of bed, the wooden floor creaking beneath my feet. I crept to the window, peering into the night. My heart thudded in my chest. The moonlight illuminated the clearing, but no animal stirred. I turned, ready to return to the safety of my bed, when I caught a glimpse of movement in the trees. A shadow darted across my line of sight, too fast to be anything natural. "Did you see that?" I breathed, my voice low. "See what?" Lily asked, her curiosity piqued despite her fear. "That something. In the woods." "Stop it," she hissed, sitting up. "You're scaring me." "Let's just go back to sleep," I said, but the unease lingered, wrapping around me like a cold fog. The next day, we woke to a bright morning, the sun filtering through the windows. Breakfast was a cheerful affair with pancakes and syrup, laughter echoing off the cabin walls. "We should go hiking," Dad suggested, his enthusiasm infectious. "There's a trail not far from here." Lily and I exchanged looks. "Sure, why not?" I said, hoping a hike would shake off the lingering dread from the night before. As we trekked through the woods, the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves replaced the ominous noises from the previous night. It felt good to be outside, the fresh air filling my lungs. "This is nice," I said, smiling at Lily. "Yeah, it is," she replied, her earlier fears forgotten. But as we ventured deeper, the atmosphere shifted. The trees grew denser, the sunlight dimmer. The trail became uneven, roots snaking across our path. "How much farther?" Lily asked, her breath coming in quick puffs. "Just a little bit," Dad assured her, though his voice lacked conviction. After a while, we came to a clearing, the ground littered with fallen leaves. In the center stood an old, gnarled tree, its bark twisted and dark. A chill crept up my spine as I approached it. "What's this?" I murmured, reaching out to touch the rough surface. "Don't, Alex," Lily shouted, pulling me back. "What if it's cursed or something?" "Cursed?" I laughed, trying to lighten the mood, but the laughter felt hollow. Dad examined the tree, his brow furrowed. "Looks like it's been here a long time. Probably just a part of the forest." But even he couldn't mask the unease in his eyes. We turned to head back, but the forest felt different now. The air thickened, and an unsettling quiet enveloped us. The rustling leaves seemed to whisper secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. That night, the noises returned, louder and more insistent. Thud, scratch. I lay in bed, heart racing, unable to sleep. I heard Lily's soft whimpers from the next room. "Lily," I called, my voice trembling. "Alex, I'm scared," she whispered back. "Stay there. I'll come to you." I slipped out of bed again, the wooden floor creaking as I moved. I paused at her door, hesitating before pushing it open. "Did you hear that?" she asked, wide-eyed. "Yeah," I swallowed hard. "But we'll be okay." I sat on the edge of her bed, and we listened together, the quiet punctuated by the ominous sounds outside. Bang. A loud crash shook the cabin, followed by a chilling silence. "What was that?" Lily gasped. "I don't know," I replied, trying to sound calm. "Maybe it's just a tree falling." But deep down, I knew it was something more. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging us into darkness. "Mom. Dad." I shouted, panic gripping my throat. Lily clutched my arm, her grip tight. "What's happening?" "Stay here." I jumped up and rushed out of her room, heart pounding. I made my way to the living room, where our parents were fumbling with their phones, their faces pale in the dim light. "What is going on?" Dad asked, his voice strained. "I don't know. But there's something out there," I exclaimed, glancing nervously toward the windows. Before anyone could respond, the power surged back on, flooding the cabin with light. But the relief was short-lived. Outside, a figure stood at the edge of the clearing, half hidden in the shadows. "Did you see that?" Mom's voice trembled. "What is it?" Dad whispered, his eyes wide. I leaned closer to the window, my breath caught in my throat. The figure was tall and gaunt, its eyes glowing a sickly yellow. It seemed to watch us, unmoving, as the trees swayed around it. "Get away from the window," Dad shouted, pulling us back. We huddled together, fear coursing through us. "What do we do?" I whispered, my heart racing. "We need to leave," Mom said, her voice shaking. "Now." Lily squeaked. "Yes, now." Dad insisted, his expression resolute. He grabbed the car keys from the table, and we rushed to the front door. But as we stepped outside, the atmosphere shifted again. The air turned thick, suffocating, and the figure was gone. "Where did it go?" I gasped, scanning the shadows. "Maybe it's just playing tricks on us," Mom said, though her voice lacked conviction. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night, echoing through the trees. "What was that?" Lily cried, her eyes wide with terror. "Back inside." Dad barked, ushering us inside. We barricaded the door, hearts racing as we listened to the chaos outside. The screams continued, mixed with frantic rustling and the sound of something crashing through the underbrush. "What is happening?" I whimpered, feeling helpless. "Just stay calm," Dad urged, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "We'll figure this out." But the sounds grew louder, closer, and the temperature in the cabin dropped. The shadows seemed to writhe, creeping along the walls. I can't take this. Lily sobbed, her voice filled with panic. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, plunging us into darkness. No. Not again. I shouted, fear flooding my senses as I fumbled for my phone, its light flickering weakly. Stay close. Dad shouted, his voice cutting through the darkness. Then came a loud bang at the door, sending us all stumbling back. What was that? Mom's voice was high-pitched, panic evident. I don't know. I cried. But we have to get out. Another bang echoed, the door rattling in its frame. We can't stay here. I shouted, the urgency of the moment pressing down on us. Dad moved to the window, peering outside. It's too dark to see anything, he yelled over the chaos. We have to wait for the morning. Lily whimpered, her eyes glistening with tears. I don't want to wait. Neither do I said, my voice barely a whisper. As we huddled together, the sounds outside intensified, a cacophony of shrieks and rustling leaves. Then, all at once, it fell quiet. What happened? Mom whispered, fear evident in her voice. Maybe it's gone, Dad suggested, though his eyes betrayed his doubt. Suddenly, the front door groaned as if something was trying to force it open. It's back. I yelled, my heart racing. There was a crash, and the door splintered, giving way to a figure that seemed to materialize from the darkness. No. Mom screamed, pulling Lily and me close. The figure stepped into the light, its gaunt features twisted and malevolent, eyes glowing with a hunger that sent chills down my spine. You shouldn't have come here, it rasped, its voice echoing like a distant thunder. Who are you? Dad shouted, stepping protectively in front of us. Just a visitor, it replied, a sinister grin spreading across its face. And you're my guests. The air grew colder, frost creeping along the floor. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. What do you want? I managed to croak. Your fear, it said, stepping closer. I feed on it. With a sudden burst of courage, I grabbed Lily's hand. Run! I shouted, and we bolted for the back door as our parents distracted the creature. We burst into the night, the cold air hitting us like a slap. This way. I urged, pulling Lily toward the trees. We raced through the underbrush, branches clawing at our skin as the sounds of chaos faded behind us. Where are we going? Lily gasped, panting. Anywhere but here. We stumbled deeper into the forest, the darkness swallowing us whole. My heart pounded in my chest, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Then, we heard it again, the sound of footsteps behind us, crunching leaves and twigs. It's coming. Lily screamed, panic lacing her voice. Keep running. I shouted, pushing us forward. We dashed through the trees, my mind racing as I tried to think of a way out. Suddenly, I spotted a light in the distance. There. I pointed, hope igniting within me. We sprinted toward it, but the footsteps grew louder, closer. Alex, it's right behind us. Lily cried, tears streaming down her face. Just a little further. I urged, my legs burning with exhaustion. As we neared the light, I realized it was the cabin's porch light. We can't go back. It's there. Lily shouted, fear overtaking her. But before I could respond, a howl pierced the air, sending chills down my spine. We have to face it. I yelled, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the light. We reached the porch, breathless, only to find our parents standing there, wide-eyed and trembling. What happened? Dad gasped. It's coming. I shouted, panic rising in my throat. As if on cue, the creature emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. You think you can escape me, it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper. In that moment, I knew we had to confront it. We're not afraid of you. I shouted, surprising myself with the strength of my voice. The creature paused, confusion flickering in its eyes. Fear is all I need. But as it approached, I felt something shift inside me. You don't own us. I yelled, stepping forward. You're nothing but a shadow. Lily stood beside me, her hand gripping mine tightly. We won't let you take us. The creature hesitated, its form wavering as if it was losing substance. No. You cannot resist, it screeched, but the glow in its eyes flickered. You feed on fear, but we refuse to give you any. I shouted, standing my ground. With a howl of rage, the creature lunged, but as it did, the light from the cabin seemed to intensify, pushing it back. "No," it cried, retreating into the shadows. And then, just like that, it was gone, the darkness swallowing it whole. We stood there, panting, the weight of fear lifting as dawn broke, light spilling into the clearing. "Is it gone?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. "I think so," I said, my heart still racing. Mom stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "We have to leave this place." We hurried inside, gathering our things, the cabin now a hollow shell of memories. As we loaded the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had escaped something dark, something that could still linger in the shadows. With one last look at the cabin, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. "Maybe we'll come back one day," I said half-heartedly, but deep down, I knew we wouldn't. As we drove away, the trees faded into the distance, leaving behind the haunted whispers and cold shadows. The sun rose higher, casting warmth over the road ahead. "Next time, let's just go to the beach," Lily suggested, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "Agreed," I replied, allowing a small smile to break through the tension. And as we drove into the light, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Whatever had haunted that cabin was behind us now, and it would stay there, trapped in the shadows of the woods. Story 2. The wind howled around the old mansion as I pulled my car up the cracked driveway, the tires crunching over gravel and weeds. It was a miserable day, gray clouds hanging low in the sky like a heavy curtain ready to fall. I had never met the distant relative who had left me this inheritance, but the letter had been clear: "You are the last of the Kingsley line. Come claim what is yours." The mansion loomed ahead, its once grand facade now draped in a cloak of neglect. Ivy clung to the walls like fingers grasping for something long lost. The windows, dark and empty, seemed to glare at me, warning me to stay away. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Just a house," I muttered to myself, trying to shake off the unease coiling in my stomach. As I stepped onto the porch, the wood creaked ominously beneath my weight. The air felt thick with secrets, and I shivered despite the warm autumn air. I fumbled with the keys, my hands trembling slightly, and finally pushed the heavy door open with a groan that echoed through the empty halls. Inside, dust motes danced in the fading light, and the smell of mildew assaulted my senses. "Ugh," I grimaced, wrinkling my nose. The grand foyer was adorned with a magnificent chandelier, though its crystals were dull and coated in grime. I took a step forward, my foot landing on a faded rug that whispered tales of better days. "Hello," I called, my voice sounding small in the cavernous space. The only response was the soft scuttling of something in the shadows. I peered into the darkened rooms branching off from the main hall, each one more foreboding than the last. As I explored, I found remnants of a life once lived. Old portraits lined the walls, their subjects staring down at me with hollow eyes. One painting in particular caught my attention. A woman with piercing blue eyes and a delicate neck, her expression both regal and sorrowful. "Who are you?" I whispered, feeling a chill race down my spine. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, causing me to jump. My heart raced as I moved cautiously toward the sound, each step accompanied by the soft padding of my sneakers on the worn floor. I peered around the corner, and there it was, a fallen stack of dishes. "Great," I muttered, rolling my eyes. "Just what I need." I bent down to pick up the shattered pieces when a cold breeze swept through the room, making me shiver. "Brrr," I huffed, rubbing my arms. "It's just the wind." But as I stood up, I felt a presence behind me. I turned sharply, expecting to find a stray animal, but the room was empty. "Okay, this is getting ridiculous," I said, forcing a laugh that felt more like a nervous giggle. As night fell, I lit a few candles, their flickering flames casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. I settled into the parlor, where the hearth was cold and dark. I had planned to comb through the old papers I'd found in the study, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the woman in the painting. "Who are you?" I whispered again, the flickering candlelight illuminating her features. Just then, the air grew colder, and the flames flickered violently. I could have sworn I heard a soft moan, like a whisper carried on the wind. "Is anyone there?" I called, my voice shaking. Silence enveloped me, thick and suffocating. In an effort to distract myself, I rummaged through the papers on the desk. Most were yellowed with age, filled with mundane details about property and taxes. But one letter caught my eye. It was dated over a century ago, written in a frantic scrawl: "The spirits will not rest." They guard their treasure. Beware the curse of the Kingsley inheritance. My pulse quickened as I read, a mixture of fear and curiosity flooding my mind. What treasure? I muttered, glancing around the room as if the answer might leap out at me. The candle flickered again, plunging the room into momentary darkness. In that instant, I heard it, a soft humming, melodic yet haunting. It wrapped around me, pulling me toward the hallway. Okay, I must be losing it, I said, standing up. I'm just tired. But the humming grew louder, more insistent, and I found myself drawn toward it against my better judgment. I followed the sound down the long corridor, my heart pounding in my chest. The air felt electric, charged with something I couldn't quite name. At the end of the hallway, I stopped in front of a door slightly ajar, the humming spilling out like a siren's call. Hello. I called into the darkness. Is someone in there? No answer. Just the humming. I pushed the door open, and it creaked ominously. The room was small and dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the cracked windows. In the center stood a dusty old piano, its keys yellowed and chipped. I approached cautiously, the humming growing louder. Who's there? I demanded, but the sound suddenly stopped, replaced by a heavy silence. I reached out to touch the piano, and as my fingers brushed the keys, a single note rang out, a hollow, resonant sound that sent chills through me. The atmosphere shifted, and I felt a presence behind me. Get out, a voice hissed, icy and sharp. I spun around, and there she was, the woman from the painting, her translucent form shimmering in the moonlight. You must leave this place. I stumbled back, heart racing. Who are you? I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. I am Eliza Kingsley, she said, her voice a haunting melody. I was trapped here, just as you will be if you don't heed my warning. The spirits guard what remains of our cursed legacy. Cursed? I echoed. What do you mean? The treasure is not gold or jewels, she said, her eyes dark with sorrow. It is a secret that binds the souls of my family to this mansion. We cannot rest until it is revealed. Then tell me. I urged, desperation clawing at my throat. What is it? The truth lies beneath, she replied, her form flickering as if the air around her was unstable. But beware the others, they will not let you. The room grew colder, and I felt a rush of wind. I turned, and shadows danced along the walls, twisting and writhing with a life of their own. No, no. Wait. I shouted, but Eliza was gone, leaving only an echo of her mournful song. I backed away, heart pounding, and crashed into the piano. The keys clattered under my weight, and the shadows surged forward, their whispers filling the air. Leave, 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 they chanted, voices overlapping and growing louder. Get away from me. I screamed, stumbling backward, my mind racing. I needed to find out what Eliza was talking about. I had to uncover the secret. As I dashed back into the hallway, the shadows clawed at me, cold fingers brushing against my skin. No. I yelled, pushing through the front door and stumbling out into the night. I took deep breaths, trying to steady myself, the cool air burning in my lungs. I have to find it, I whispered to myself, determination rising within me. I scanned the perimeter of the mansion, looking for any signs that might lead me to the truth Eliza spoke of. My eyes landed on an overgrown garden in the back, its tangled vines and weeds concealing something beneath. I ran toward it, my heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. What are you hiding? I muttered, dropping to my knees to clear away the debris. As I dug through the dirt, my fingers brushed against something cold and hard. I pulled out a small, ornate box, intricately carved with symbols I didn't recognize. My breath hitched in my throat. This must be it, I thought, the weight of the box heavy in my hands. But just as I opened it, a cold wind swept through the garden, and the shadows surged back, swirling around me like a tempest. No. You cannot have it. I screamed, clutching the box to my chest. I will not let you take it. The shadows twisted and writhed, forming a figure in front of me, a man, his face twisted in rage. You do not belong here, he roared, the sound echoing through the night. The legacy is ours to protect. Stop. I shouted, my voice filled with raw panic. I'm not here to take anything. I just want to know the truth. The figure hesitated, his anger faltering. You are the last of the Kingsley line. You could free us, or condemn us forever. What do you mean? I asked, feeling the weight of the box in my hands. How can I help? You must choose, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Open the box, but know that the truth will come at a cost. I hesitated, glancing between the box and the swirling shadows. If I open it, will you all finally be free? The figure nodded, hope flickering in his eyes. Yes, but you must be ready to face the consequences. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself and slowly lifted the lid. Inside lay a tattered journal, its pages filled with the same frantic scrawl I'd seen in the letter earlier. As I flipped through it, the words revealed a dark history, betrayal, jealousy, and a pact made to protect the family's legacy at all costs. Suddenly, the shadows lunged for me, and the figure shouted, "Read it aloud. You must break the curse." With trembling hands, I began to read, my voice rising above the chaos. To those who inherit this legacy, know that the bond of blood is both a gift and a curse. Only by revealing the truth can we be set free. As I read, the shadows shrieked, a cacophony of anger and sorrow. The wind howled around me, and I felt the weight of centuries pressing down. Keep going, the figure urged, desperation in his voice. I continued, my heart racing, the words spilling out as if they had a life of their own. The sins of our ancestors bind us to this place. Only in forgiveness can we find peace. With each word, the shadows began to dissipate, their forms flickering like candle flames. I pressed on, my voice steady. Forgive those who have wronged you, and let go of the pain. As I finished the final words, the shadows collapsed into a whirlwind, a blinding light erupting around me. Thank you, the figure said, his voice now filled with warmth. You have set us free. And just like that, the light swallowed me whole. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the parlor, the box clutched tightly in my hands. The room felt different, lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. I glanced around, half expecting the spirits to return, but the air was still. I stood, heart pounding but relieved. I did it, I whispered, a smile creeping onto my face. I broke the curse. As I made my way out of the mansion, I turned one last time to look at the portraits lining the walls. The eyes that once bore down on me now seemed softer, filled with gratitude. I stepped out into the cool night air, the moon shining brightly overhead. For the first time since I arrived, I felt a sense of peace. I would carry the legacy of the Kingsleys with me, not as a burden, but as a reminder of the power of truth and forgiveness. And as I drove away, the mansion slowly faded into the distance, finally free from its haunted past. Story 3. The moon hung low in the sky, a dim and watchful eye above the old Whitmore house. Its silhouette loomed over us, its cracked windows resembling hollow eyes, shadows twisting and curling in the flickering light of our candles. The air was thick with the scent of dust and something else, something ancient, almost rancid. I shivered, pulling my sweater tighter around me as I glanced at my friends, their faces painted with curiosity and a hint of fear. Are we really going to do this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Come on, Jess. It's just a game, said Mark, grinning as he set the Ouija board down on the rickety coffee table. What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words, I muttered. I glanced at Sarah, who was fiddling with her hair, clearly nervous. You don't have to do this, you know. No, I want to, she replied, her voice steadier than I expected. I've always been curious about it, and it'll be fun. Plus, it's Halloween. What better night to try? Yeah, right, Liam chimed in, rolling his eyes. It's all in good fun. Just a cardboard game, Jess. I sighed, knowing I was outnumbered. When we first discussed having a Halloween night in the old Whitmore house, I thought it would be a simple gathering, maybe some spooky stories and a horror movie. But the moment the Ouija board surfaced, the tension in the group shifted. I could sense it, an electric charge in the air that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. Mark lit the last candle, the flickering flame casting dancing shadows across the walls. Okay, let's get started. Everyone sit down and place your fingers on the planchette. We gathered around the table, the board's letters and numbers staring back at us like an unspoken challenge. I hesitated, but then I placed my fingers lightly on the planchette, feeling the warmth of Mark's hand next to mine. Sarah and Liam followed suit, their faces a mix of excitement and trepidation. Is anyone here? Mark asked, his voice mocking, yet there was a tremor beneath it. The planchette remained still. Maybe it's broken, Liam snorted, leaning back in his chair. Shush. Just give it a minute, Sarah urged, her eyes wide. We waited, the silence stretching like a thin taut string. Then, with a gentle push, the planchette began to move. Whoa! Did you do that? I shot a glance at Mark. No, he exclaimed. I swear. I'm not moving it. The planchette glided across the board, spelling out YES. What the hell? I recoiled, a chill creeping down my spine. Who are you? Mark pressed on, but the planchette moved again, this time spelling DARK. An uneasy laugh escaped me. Okay, this is getting creepy. Just wait, Liam said, a hint of excitement creeping into his voice. Let's see where this goes. We continued, asking questions, the planchette responding with answers that sent goosebumps racing across my skin. It spelled out the name Amara, followed by DEATH. All right, this is getting weird, I said, my heart racing. Maybe we should stop. Just one more question. Liam urged, leaning closer. What do you want? The planchette shot to the letters FREE. Free. I whispered, glancing around at my friends. What does that even mean? Before anyone could answer, the candle flames flickered violently, and the room was plunged into darkness for a split second. Panic surged through me, and I instinctively grabbed Sarah's hand. Guys. Mark's voice trembled. Did you see that? Maybe the wind. Liam suggested, but he sounded uncertain. Just then, the candle flame steadied, illuminating the room once more. But something felt off. The air was thick, the silence oppressive. I looked at the Ouija board, its letters glistening in the candlelight, and I could swear they were shifting. We should probably close it, Sarah said, her voice shaky. Should we? Mark asked, frowning. Yes. I exclaimed, a bit too forcefully. It's not a joke anymore. We need to end this. Fine, I'll ask one last question, Mark said, his bravado fading. Is there anyone here with us? The planchette jerked violently, dragging our fingers with it. I gasped as it spelled out YES, then suddenly shot to STAY. Stay. Liam echoed, his eyes wide. What does that mean? I don't want to find out, I said, pulling my hand away. But just then, the air grew colder, an eerie whisper echoing around us, barely audible. Stay, it seemed to say, and my heart dropped. Did you hear that? Sarah squeaked, her face pale. Yeah, Mark said, his bravado completely shattered. We need to stop this now. As we scrambled to end the session, the candles flickered once more, and in a rush of panic, we pushed the planchette to GO. Silence fell. The air felt heavy, suffocating, as if the house itself was holding its breath. We sat in our chairs, eyes darting around the dimly lit room, waiting for something to happen. And then, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, making us all jump. What was that? Sarah shrieked, clutching her arms tightly. Probably just an old house settling, Liam said, though his voice lacked confidence. Yeah, right, I muttered. Let's check it out. Mark led the way, his flashlight beam dancing across the walls. As we entered the kitchen, we found the old wooden table overturned, chairs strewn about like discarded toys. The air was thick with a strange heaviness, and I could feel the tension coiling around us. What the hell happened? Mark exclaimed, staring in disbelief. I don't know, I whispered, my heart racing. But we need to leave. Suddenly, the temperature dropped further, and I could see my breath misting in the air. I shivered, looking around. This isn't just the house settling, guys. Something is wrong. Before anyone could respond, a figure appeared at the edge of the kitchen, cloaked in shadows. I squinted, my heart pounding in my chest. Who's there? Mark called out, his voice trembling. But the figure only stood there, silent and still. Run! I screamed, darting back into the living room. We fled, our footsteps pounding against the wooden floor, but the shadows seemed to follow us, creeping closer with every heartbeat. I could feel the cold wrapping around me, tightening like a noose. We burst into the living room, slamming the door behind us. What the hell was that? Liam gasped, his face ashen. I don't know, but I'm not sticking around to find out, I said, my voice shaky. Agreed, Sarah added. Let's call for help. We need to get out of here. I fumbled for my phone, but it was dead. I cursed under my breath, glancing at the others. Does anyone have a signal? Mark checked his phone. Nothing. It's like we're cut off. Just then, the lights flickered again before plunging us into darkness once more. Jess. Sarah called out, her voice barely above a whisper. Right here, I said, reaching for her hand. Suddenly, the cold enveloped us, and I could hear soft, mocking laughter echoing in the dark. Stay, it taunted, a chilling melody that made my skin crawl. This isn't a joke anymore. I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. We need to get out. Let's try the front door, Mark suggested. We moved carefully, navigating through the shadows, every creak of the house making us jump. As we reached the front door, I grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I twisted and pulled, panic rising in my chest. It's locked. I yelled. Try the back. Liam shouted, his voice frantic. We dashed toward the back door, but it was the same. Locked tight. I could feel a presence looming over us, pressing down, suffocating. What do we do? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. We have to find another way, Mark said, his eyes darting around. There has to be a window. We raced toward the nearest window, but it wouldn't budge either. The laughter grew louder, echoing through the house, reverberating off the walls. Stay, it whispered, and I felt a cold breath against my neck, freezing me in place. Jess. Mark yelled, grabbing my arm. We need to move. I turned to run, but the shadows coalesced in front of me, forming an ominous figure, its face shrouded in darkness. I screamed, stumbling back into Mark, who caught me just as the figure raised a skeletal hand. Free, it rasped, its voice like crackling leaves. Let us go. I cried, fear overwhelming me. Free, it repeated, the shadows swirling around it, growing denser, darker. What do you want? Liam shouted, his voice breaking. Free. Then, in a sudden rush, the figure lunged forward, its icy hand reaching for us. I felt a rush of air, and everything turned to chaos. We stumbled back, knocking over furniture in our panic, but the entity followed us, relentless. Jess. We need to get outside. Mark shouted, pulling me with him. We dashed back to the front door, slamming our bodies against it. But something held it shut. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing down on us, suffocating. Help! Sarah screamed, her voice cracking. Someone help us! Suddenly, the laughter faded, and a voice echoed in my mind, cold and distant. You invited me in. No. I screamed, shaking my head. We didn't mean it. Just let us go. Free, it whispered, and the weight of the darkness lifted just enough for the door to burst open, throwing us onto the porch. We tumbled out into the moonlight, gasping for breath, but the shadows lingered at the edge of the light, writhing and shifting. Run! I yelled, and we sprinted down the path, the chill of the entity still clinging to us. As we reached the street, I glanced back at the Whitmore house. The windows glowed with an unearthly light, and I could swear I saw faces in the darkness, watching us, waiting. Keep going, Mark urged, pulling me forward. We didn't stop until we reached the safety of the main road, panting and shaking. What just happened? Liam gasped, his eyes wide with disbelief. I don't know, I said, trying to catch my breath. But we were stupid to mess with that board. We shouldn't have done it. Jess, it's not your fault, Sarah said, her voice trembling. We all agreed to it. Yeah, but we also invited something we didn't understand. We have to warn others. We can't let this happen again. As we stood there, the wind howled around us, carrying the echoes of laughter and whispers from the house. I shuddered, knowing this was far from over. Let's just go home, Mark said, looking back at the dark silhouette of the Whitmore house. We'll figure this out in the morning. I nodded, but deep down, I knew we had unleashed something ancient and terrible. The laughter echoed in my mind as we walked away, the darkness of that house a haunting reminder that some doors should never be opened.